Hello everyone, how's it going? My name is Dan the Tutor. Today I'm going to show you a topic from algebra or pre-calculus. It's pretty much in every level of math from algebra onwards. It's simplifying square roots. So for instance, if I give you the square root of 48, obviously the square root of 48 is not a perfect square. It's going to be a decimal, which is why a lot of times we ask to simplify this as much as possible. So before we answer questions like this, the first thing we need to do is talk about the square roots that we absolutely need to know. The perfect squares is what they're called. And whenever you have a perfect square, it means that you know these square roots. So square root of 1 is 1, obviously. That actually won't even play a role today, but just so you know, square root of 1 is 1. Square root of 4 is 2. Square root of 9 is 3. We're going to do this up to 10. Square root of 16 is 4. Square root of 25 is 5. Square root of 36 is 6. Square root of 49 is 7. Square root of 64 is 8. Square root of 81 is 9. And the last one, square root of 100 is 10. So whenever you see any of these under the square root, you know what the answer already is because it's a perfect square. Now the other thing we need to talk about in terms of strategy with breaking up square roots is that we are going to be looking for pairs and squares, because the only way you can break out of the square root is if you have a pair or a square. And here's what I mean by that. Let's say I have the square root of 12. Well, you need to think of the factors of 12. The factors of 12 are 3 and 4, and both of them are under the square root. And you know the square root of 4. The square root of 4 is 2, so it gets out of the square root. In other words, the square root of 12 is equal to 2 root 3. See how the 2 got out of the square root and the 3 is still locked up in that square root. Another way you can break up the square root of 12, you can also do this. Square root of 3 times square root of 4, and the square root of 4 can break up into the square root of 2 and the square root of 2, and these guys are pairs. And so once you find a pair, that breaks out of the square root as a 2. So the answer again is 2 root 3, and I got it in two different ways. So again, we are looking for either pairs like this, or you're looking for perfect squares like that. So now let's look at some example problems. Let's say I want to break up the square root of 8. So the factors of 8 are 4 and 2. And once again, I have a perfect square right here. That's root 4, which is 2. So the answer is 2 root 2. This 2 broke out of the square root. This square root of 2 is obviously still in the square root. Okay, that one was easy. By the way, for the rest of these, if you want to try these on your own first, pause the video, go ahead and give them a try. I think that'd be a good idea if I were you. Next is the square root of 18. If I think of the factors of 18, you've got, well, there's actually a few. You can do root 6 and root 3. You can also do, if you wanted to, root 9 and root 2. Both work. We can do it both ways. I don't care. If you continue down the left road, you would say, hey, square root of 6 can break down further to square root of 3 and square root of 2. And now I've got a pair with these root 3's. So the 3 gets out of the square root, and you've still got a root 2 left right there. If you want to try this method with the root 9 and the root 2, well then, square root of 9, that's a perfect square. That's 3. And so you get this 3 root 2 a little bit faster that way. Now one thing I do want to mention is you never want to, and I repeat, you never want to break it up like root 1 and root 18, because you can do that forever. You're not getting anywhere. Never break up with a root 1. That just won't help us. So don't do that. Okay, that's it for root 18. The next one we have is root 50. How would we break up root 50? Again, there's a couple ways you can do it. What I would say is root 50 is root 2 times root 25, because 25 times 2 is 50. Root 25 is a perfect square. That's 5. So the answer is just 5 root 2. You see, we can get through these pretty quickly once we know what we're doing. Next is the square root of 24. 24 I know breaks up into root 6 and root 4. Root 4 is a perfect square. That's 2. Root 6 can be broken down further into root 3 and root 2. But notice that none of those are squares or pairs. So what do we do then? Do we write 2 root 3 root 2? Well, I mean, you can do that, but root 3 and root 2, you want to simplify this as much as possible. You do want to put 2 root 6 by multiplying the 3 and the 2 together. You get back to root 6 right here. And again, that's under the square root because there was no square and there was no pair. So that's the answer for root 24. I've got 2 more to go today. Root 48. Well, root 48 can break up into 6 times 8 is 48. So root 6 times root 8. Root 6 breaks up into root 3 and root 2. Root 8 breaks up into root 4 and root 2. Notice I've got a square right there. That's 2. And it looks like I've also got a pair. These two together will make 2. So look at this. I've got 2 2's outside of my square root. And then the square root of 3 right here is still inside the square root. And yes, you do want to simplify this as much as possible. So 2 times 2 is 4 times root 3. And there's our answer for root 48. And now I've got just one more for us today. The square root of 72. Well, the square root of 72, that can be broken up into root 9 and root 8. Root 9, of course, is a perfect square. That's 3. Root 8 can be broken up into root 4 and root 2. Root 4 is a perfect square. That's 2. So it looks like for this one, I've got 3 times 2 outside the square root, and still inside the square root is that 2 right there. So the final answer is 6 root 2. And that's pretty much everything you need to know in terms of simplifying square roots. Go ahead and find more on your own. Honestly, if you want some practice, you can just literally choose any number you want, and there's probably a square root for it, like root 56, root 94. My tip to you, choose an even number. A lot of times, odd numbers don't have any square roots. So as long as you choose any even number, it's guaranteed to at least be an interesting problem. So go ahead and try some of those on your own. If you have any questions, please post them in the comments below. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, and bye-bye.